Welcome back everybody, VST here, Tech, and I have the latest Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, and it really looks pretty much like the previous Ultra phone, which is the S22 Ultra, right? So what is the difference and why is Samsung taking this approach? I can think of another brand that is pretty much doing this, and that's no secret, it's Apple. So I'm also happy to see that Samsung are going a bit the Apple way, but it's only because this design here was based on the design from the Note 20 Ultra that really had some classic resemblance with some of the old Notes. So some things are back, right? Some things changed, and some things are really new, guys. And this is gonna be my full review about the Samsung S23 Ultra. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna do in-depth comparison video between this camera here and this camera here, in-depth photo comparison. I'm gonna do everything you possibly can do to this phone without, of course, going full Jerry Reconic and break it. So if you wanna get all the content, guys, make sure to sub for things like this, so extreme stress test, also gaming performance, camera, and all of this. But right now you're watching my full review, guys, and like I told you, some things are the same, like from the S22 Ultra. Some things really change slightly, and there are some new things. And the most important question of this review is going to be, is this phone worth? Is this actually worth your money? This is not a cheap phone, right? We need to understand this, guys, and I'm going to start, of course, first with the first thing that is very obvious, and that's the design. A lot of people are saying that there is not much for an upgrade, guys. Some of the lenses here are just a bit more protrude, like this one here, and I can tell you, yeah, that's absolutely wrong. Because although these phones seem to be very equal looking, this one here has a less curved display, giving you more flat area. But forget about this. I mean, I'm anyway a big fan of curved designs. The biggest improvement here is the fact that you can hold the phone like this, and it has a boxy shape, really resembles from the Note 9, which is really a classic model. So design-wise, that's probably the biggest changes. Also on the back, the cameras here are just slightly a bit more protrude, and I can tell you guys, I'm totally buying in this new design. It is absolutely easier to hold, right? When I hold the phones like this, just easier. Also, the S23 Ultra is a bit taller somehow compared to this one, but I mean, forget about the S22 Ultra. We don't need that one. I mean, that's now an old phone. I want to focus now on some of the new things, guys. And before I go to the new things, I want to tell you about some things that didn't really change, because just think of it. What is like the most visible thing that you notice when you take a phone in your hand, besides of course the size, right? It's the display, right? And the display remains pretty much the same, guys. It can still do 120 Hertz. You can use WQHD plus resolution and LTPO going down really with some low hertz to try to save the battery and all of this. And even the peak mid brightness is 1750. So people were like, yeah, what is going on here? I mean, why Samsung didn't put something like this? Because even the little Xiaomi 13, yeah, can do more. But I can tell you guys, I compared both phones, this one and the S22 Ultra, using them under direct sunlight, and the amazing effect was here when the S22 Ultra launched under direct sunlight. It was really wow. Now the wow is long gone because people really get used to this, but this one here still does a very good job, so it will not disappoint. There are also some other noticeable upgrades I want to talk about, and I don't really see too much coverage. The buttons here, guys, the power button and also the volume rockers are a bit brighter, and they're also more tactile like compared to the one that I have on the Ultra. And also something that I spot, guys, yeah, we also have somehow like a whole new microphone on the bottom of the phone. So design-wise, there are these tiny tricks, there are these slight changes, but the biggest changes really is the flat screen and of course kind of the size of the phone. So by the way, if you have a case for the S22 Ultra and you wanted to save some money, yeah, the cases are not compatible. But remember, in the beginning I told you that there are some things that remain the same, there are some things that slightly change, and there are some things that, yeah, big change, absolutely nothing in common. You know what? I'm gonna start with what the S23 Ultra has nothing in common with the S22 Ultra. And I mean, if you take a phone in the hand, guys, first thing we see, of course, is the display, but then what do you use to keep things going is the chip. This here runs the Exynos 2200. Finally now, Samsung globally roll out the Snapdragon Qualcomm 8 Gen 2 inside the S23 series, and I love it. Why? Battery life seems to be really incredible. The same battery size, 5000 mAh, the one that I have here, really means absolute different battery experience. 1 day battery, some days, day and a half battery. I can do like 6, 7, 8 hours using mobile and also Wi-Fi, so it's really incredible. The 8 Gen 2 is the best I have this also in my Xiaomi 13, and this chip really is a huge upgrade compared to the 8 Gen 1, which was actually not so good. And Samsung are also taking things a bit further by tweaking the chip a bit and giving us the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 Galaxy. So a lot of people say that this only translates to some clock speeds on the GPU and the CPU, but they forget that we have also the ISP and the hexagon, which are very important hardware chips, and they're using the camera, and yeah, we're gonna also get down to the camera. So the improvements here are real. The right question to be asked here is if the improved clock speed on the CPU and the GPU translate into some real performance. And we still have yet to see that, but overall the 8 Gen 2 is being amazing and is doing amazing work in almost all the phones they put it in. And although many people think that camera improvements nowadays are just because of pure AI, ISP, etc., well, photography is just based on some real life principles. Where we have optics, where we have light, and we have a sensor, right? So the light travels through the optics and lenses and gets down to the sensor, and then we get an image. But okay, this was a while ago. Now in the Samsung S23 Ultra, guys, we have for the first time the latest HP2 ISOCELL sensor. And what is the biggest difference? If we just have to name one thing, it's 200 megapixels, guys. So this phone had 108, this had 200 megapixel, and you know what? For the last 1 year, I shot maybe like 10 pictures with 108 megapixel on the S22 Ultra. So why is this important? A lot of people think it's just marketing, but it's not just marketing, guys. It's also some science. More megapixels will allow for more binning, right? So it means that you can combine individual pixels and get more light. So even if you're shooting outside under the daylight condition, you're gonna get pixel binning 16 to 1. So you're gonna get like 16 individual pixels binned to 1, and you're gonna get at the end better details. So besides the 200 megapixel, guys, and the new possibilities for binning, and then also the dual VTG and smart ISO and other things like this, there are also some other different improvements. I'm gonna talk about them, but first things first, like how can you tell if the new HP2 sensor is really better than the old HM3, and how much? And this question is very important. Over the last few days, I've been working with MS from the Gcam scene, so thank you so much. This guy amazing. I was doing samples, he was analyzing them, and what we did, guys, we took several like hundreds of photos using the standard photo mode with the scene optimizer on and off, which means auto night on and off. Then we went to the night mode, took also like night photos with the maximum exposure, like 5 seconds, which is 5 seconds here and 8 seconds here. Then we shot multiple samples using the expert RAW, using the auto HDR there, and also using the normal pro RAW mode. We don't have HDR, and trying to compare and check on our computers what is happening. Using Lightroom, we were able to tweak the highlights, trim them down, also the exposure, the EV, and play with the shadows to try to understand like how much of the information that this sensor captures is there, and how much can we recover in, let's say, very hard extreme dynamic range. And I can give some examples here. What you see on the screen is pretty much what we have been doing. So it took us really many hours to try to understand, and it seems to be that there are some improvements, guys. Don't expect any dramatic changes, guys, but there are significant changes. And in any normal day scenario, the S23 Ultra should be able to take a better picture. Imagine scenes where you have the sun behind a building, right? And then you have some hard shadows down below, really with high dynamic range. This phone should be able to do better. So there are some improvements in the camera when you're shooting photo, and this phone was already great. So improving on that one is going to be very hard, but Samsung did it. But for me, one of the biggest improvements is what Samsung did with the video. So now not only can you shoot 8K 30 FPS, which is kind of cool, and maybe I'm going to use it in 10 years, but Samsung introduced a 2 times wider OIS, optical image stabilization. I've been testing this, and you can just see this in my full comparison review on the phone camera. The results are really stunning, and if you have some cheap gimbals, throw them away. You will not really need them. So good it is, right? So video recording has been improved. There are also other improvements. Remember this phone here, when famous with the periscope, you have the periscope here, which translates to 3x and 10x optical zooms. And the S22 Ultra was doing very fine on this one, but the S23 Ultra is taking this up to another level where pictures shot on 30x, which is hybrid zoom, which means we combine digital zoom and optical, now are very, very usable. And you can see the examples that I'm showing you right now on the screen. So there are some improvements in this area as well. And another thing that changed, guys, is the front camera. Now, the S22 Ultra had a 40 megapixel front camera, and then Samsung put a 12 megapixel front camera. And like, people will like scratch their heads and think why. But this here, guys, is 12 megapixel native. It has PDF, and the selfies that the S23 Ultra produces are even better. And this shows something very important, that the megapixel count is not always that important. It's really important what you do with this information if you have a good sensor, and of course processing and post-processing, and also AI. Well, because that's my full review, I need to tell you some things that I don't like and I really hope Samsung will fix. When you shoot 4K 60 FPS video, guys, you're not able to change the lenses, which is really driving me crazy. On the S22 Ultra or any other like really pro smartphone, you should be able to go from the ultra wide to the wide camera to the zoom camera and even change the front camera with the back camera. So far this has been missing and I really hope that Samsung is going to release this soon, but there is something that Samsung released and I'm a big fan of it, an upgraded version of the camera assistant. You have plenty of new options for softened pictures, medium and high. Also very important, new options for capturing. You can put priority on speed, you can put priority on quality. And our test with MS from the Gcam scene show that when you use priority set on quality, you get most of the time better result. You have also plenty of new options for the shutter, and I'm going to be doing a whole individual video dedicated to camera assistant. So it's really Samsung going into the right direction. I mean, come on. They also try to incorporate the expert role now being part of the modes from the regular camera. So I can tell you, yes, there are some slight changes. Some changes are significant. Don't expect something dramatic, but this camera is, yeah, better than this. There are some other changes that Samsung introduced here. They ditched the 128GB version, so now the S23 Ultra starts with 256, but a lame move only with 8GB of RAM. So if you want to get 12GB of RAM, you need to get at least the 512GB of version. But in my country, Samsung did some, yeah, nice things, some discounts, so maybe this will work at the end out of view. The storage is UFS 4.1, which is very, very fast, but if you have been following this video until now, you would have noticed that I didn't mention something. What about One UI 5.1, guys? I'm gonna do a whole lot of video about this, but because that's my full review, I wanna tell you, it's been a while I've seen a Samsung phone really operate so smooth, so flawless, right? You know, if you have been following my channel, I put a lot of efforts into trying to optimize my experience with One UI, with animations, and it has been like a love and hate relationship. I have a feeling right now that with the S23 Ultra and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, it's gonna be a bit more like love, not so much hate. So definitely watch for some more content like this, guys. And overall, this is a great phone. This phone here was the best phone for me from Android. I have no doubts that the S23 Ultra will be a very serious contender, but okay, we are now still February. Let's see what the others will put up. Overall, I'm really impressed because of the things that I said, and I really hope that you like videos like this. If that's the case, guys, you can support the channel. Please, you and your family stay safe, and don't forget to visit VST over and bye.